Hello and welcome back to Atmosphere Electric. There's Fran, I'm Rich. How are you, bud?
I am not too bad. How are you?
Yeah, all right, mate. Yeah, feeling a little bit sorry for myself today. My team lost an important game last night, coaching-wise, but other than that, mate, we're all good.
Players' fault? Manager's fault?
Didn't played the occasion, not the game. It got too much for them. It was a league decider, and they basically psychologically couldn't quite handle the pressure of it all. It was an evening kick-off as well, the first time they had one of them. So they had the whole day to build up to it, obviously.
Lights.
Just all that kind of good stuff. So just ultimately failed at the final hurdle. But I, of course, do take some of the blame as well, and probably could have done things differently now looking back in hindsight, and try to take some of that pressure off them. But at least we've got the distraction of the Premier League to come. But being honest with you, let's start with what I think has been the most kind of interesting story, because obviously Gary Neville laying into the quality of the Premier League, and it's starting to grow. We've been talking about it for a little while as well. We're not for 1 second suggesting we're the four leaders of this conversation, but it is now really starting to come to a head, isn't it? Where people are just getting a little bit bored of the way that we're playing this system-based football.
We've said it, like you said, for a while, that it is boring. It's just passing for the sake of passing. Attacking flair seems to have gone out of the game. I don't know if you watched the PSG game last night. That is exactly what the Premier League is craving. A team like that gets the ball, Kvaratskhelia, getting the ball and just running at players and causing mayhem. That is exactly. I really enjoyed last night's game. I thought it was so refreshing to watch a team just be free-flowing and have no fear and not coached to an inch of their life. So I really enjoyed that, and I just think that's exactly what is wrong with the Premier League.
Yeah, I didn't watch any of it based on what was going on in my life, but I've seen enough of PSG to agree with you. I absolutely agree that that's absolutely what football should look like. And I actually thought Inter Milan, when they played Bayern Munich, obviously Arsenal and Real Madrid, I thought both of those games showed what could be possible, as much as I thought it was a very weak Real Madrid side. I thought Arsenal's second half particularly were very dynamic, created quite a few chances, and it could have been more than three. And I thought the way that Inter Milan play with the 3-5-2, but quite often the left-footed centre-back is the highest up the pitch, painting pictures that Bayern Munich just couldn't handle. I think there is an alternate way, and we've all got to stop being Guardiola-ised, haven't we, really?
Not even Guardiola. So I even look at teams like the old Conte teams, like 3-5-2. This is the way we play. Like, it wasn't fluid in the sense of players could go and play out of position. It was very structured. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, different styles get different results and different ways of playing. But I think just in general, players are overcoached. So getting the ball to the winger, just go on, have a bit of space, run at him, see what you can do. Like, that's just completely gone out the game. And I know you've got players like Doku and Grealish when he first came in, who were brought in to sort of do that, but they're still being coached out of them. They can only do that in a certain part of the pitch. Like back in the day, wingers used to get the ball from their own half and run it all the way up to the end of the pitch. You don't see that anymore.
Well, we've said for a while now that if you're a winger, you probably don't want to go and play for Man City, because that's the deathbed of a winger now, isn't it? You look at, like I said, you mentioned Doku, you look at obviously Grealish being the kind of the headline act that was a free. And again, is he actually just a winger? He could play in the 10, but even Phil Foden's now struggling in that position. And actually, going back to a winger, Saka, for the whatever it was 80 minutes he was on the pitch on Tuesday night, showed what is possible, as Kvaratskhelia does as well. But if you let someone have a run at players, it just causes mayhem, and they don't know how to react to it.
I thought it was unbelievable considering how long he's been out. The transformation that he's made Arsenal look just by being available, and I thought he played fantastically as well. He made Odegaard look a good player again, like we've mentioned partnerships before. He made Odegaard look fantastic because of the runs that he was making, the space he was creating. So I'm really excited to see Saka back, especially for the England picture. I think it'd be really good for England. I think Tuchel will be rubbing his hands together at what he's got available now.
Yeah, I didn't see. Like I said, I've been out of the game a little bit. Whether that him coming off with that knock is anything to worry about at all. But yeah, he was very good, and Arsenal were, again against the, let's put it into context. Real Madrid did lose at home to Valencia at the weekend, so they're not quite firing all cylinders, and they're definitely missing a lot of players. But nonetheless, you still have to beat that Real Madrid team. What they've done is probably take the game away from that 2-0. I think we all would have thought, Real Madrid at the Bernabeu. But at 3-0, you've got to say that's them done now, haven't you?
Yeah, I don't think you can ever write Real Madrid off, can you? But you'd like to think that Arsenal would be able to hold on to that lead. And the way that Real Madrid played in defensively, the way that they looked, you'd think Arsenal have probably got a squeak of scoring a goal, haven't you? Which, I mean, if they score another one, it's completely gone.
Yeah. I've actually, obviously didn't catch too much last night, but I would, but quite enjoyed this round of the Champions League. It feels like we're back to kind of the old school. Obviously, we are back to old school knockout competition, but it just felt like we've almost forgotten all that nonsense of that league table where there's 157 teams and the top 148 go through. We're now with the meat and veg of it. And your shout when you put the money on when PSG lost 1-0 to Liverpool is looking pretty strong right now. You've got to be feeling pretty good about yourself.
Yeah, I think when you look on the other side of the draw, I mean, I can't really see from the current side of the draw of PSG. I don't think Arsenal, even though they've gone and battered Real Madrid, I don't think they'll live with PSG. I think they're just far, far superior. On the other side of the draw, the threat is Barcelona, quite clearly, isn't it? But again, Barcelona are a very young side. Like, I just think this PSG are tailor-made to go and wipe the floor with the tournament. It could come back to bite me, that comment, but especially at 16-1, I think it's a great bet.
Yeah, I like Inter Milan as well, to be fair, as I said. But to get to the final, once in the final, anything can happen, as we well know. And I think bringing it back to the Premier League, looking down the list of teams, that there are a lot of teams that play system-based football. I think this summer already, as we kind of didn't think would happen, teams are starting to lose their managers. Obviously, Southampton made the move nice and early. I'll be very interested to see what type of managers people bring in. And can we have a little bit of a... Do you know what the Premier League's missing for me? And I thought about this last night, is Bielsa. Like someone that just got a completely different... I know, whether it's successful or not, but just to have some different styles in the Premier League again, I think would be really important, because I don't want to watch your 4-3-3 against my 4-3-3 and the ball goes into the CDM, who turns out and plays to the full-back and goes back to the centre-back. Like you say, you want a little bit more than that, don't we?
That's why when I look at some of the teams which have done well that aren't big teams, like your Bournemouths, like your Fulhams, Villa to an extent, Villa don't play the traditional sort of way, they're just a little bit refreshing to watch, and they're getting results, I think, because they're a different style. You're not just ploughing the same formations out and you're able to just continuously train the same defensive structures. I do think, even Palace, Palace obviously have picked up massively since the beginning of the season, but they don't play the traditional style. They're more counter-attack based. So I think you are starting to see the teams that do opt for a different style get a bit better results out of it, because it's harder to coach against.
One you mentioned Crystal Palace. One to watch out for is I'm starting to get quite a few people in my logos talking about bigger clubs circling around a manager.
I've heard him, Glasner and Spurs.
Yeah, I've heard a couple of clubs are thinking about him as a possible solution to their problem. So that's an interesting piece one to watch out for. And of course, I'm sure Palace will do everything they can to hold on to him. But yeah, definitely a couple of whispers starting to come through. There might be some concrete interest in him. And before we go on to this week's predictions, Fran, obviously last week, as we said at the time, was always going to be a difficult week to tiptoe through. I know I certainly got a couple of correct scores, I think, or certainly, or at least a correct score, and was not far off of. But how do we get on? How do we do?
So we both got 4 out of 10, which on the face of it isn't particularly great, is it?
Great,
but
no.
Some of the results are very, very close. So with a bit of luck, it could have been 7 or 8. But I got 2 correct scores and you got 3. So on the actual correct score front, we've done relatively well.
Did I? What 3 did I get right?
So you got Newcastle to beat Leicester 3-0.
Yeah.
You had Tottenham to beat Southampton 2-1. And you also had Wolves to beat Ipswich 2-1.
Spurs won 3-1.
Oh, was it 3? No, there you go. 2 then.
So, yeah, I thought it was 2. Yeah, that's why I was like, I'm not sure I did. Yeah, but like you say, if I'd have tiptoed my way through that and done the correct scores, you still could have come out with a profit, but of course didn't. And obviously a couple of shock results in there. I suppose the biggest of them all being Fulham, showing teams how to play against what looks starting to look like a fragile Liverpool. Before we move on to this week's, there is still no chance of anybody catching Liverpool. They're still far too far ahead, and it's all kind of done.
It's done. It's a shame that Arsenal haven't had Saka back 3-4 weeks earlier, because I think you might have had a bit of a race on then. Like, there'd have obviously been 5, 6, 7, 8 points closer to Liverpool, and I think you'd have probably had to say Liverpool look shaky, don't they? And there would have been a race on, but they're just so far ahead that they can almost fall over the line at the minute.
Yeah, and good news, it sounds like Salah and Van Dijk's contract, as you alluded to, I think last week, is starting to look like there's some noises coming out and that's going to get done. So that feels like a sensible piece of work for Liverpool moving forward as well.
Yeah, I think so. Like you mentioned, they just need time, don't they? Time that'll allow them that little bit of time to restructure the squad over a few transfer windows, as opposed to a singular summer window where they're going to be spending a lot of money to replace those key players.
And of course, we touched on the Champions League there a minute ago with Arsenal's victory over Real Madrid. That guarantees, locks in fifth into Champions League as well. So now it is very much a race for the top five, which I guess makes that a little bit more interesting, potentially based on the fact that it will drag a few other teams in the mix. But that is really all we're looking for, and all that's left to play for, really, isn't it? Is that top five, because we can now lock in the bottom three off the back of the last weekend's fixture, surely.
Oh, I mean, it was already locked in, wasn't it? But that result has absolutely solidified the three going down. So yeah, that's done and dusted, and we are looking at top five. And I think it's going to be an interesting race, because the more I watch of Chelsea, the more I am unimpressed and look at them and think, I can't see you making it. Newcastle have picked up, haven't they? Obviously, scored, won a trophy, just gone and battered a very, 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 very poor Leicester side, and they look to be the ones that are going to be fourth, I'd say. I think Forest are guaranteeing themselves that third spot. It's then going to be that last spot, isn't it? It's going to be between a Man City, Chelsea, Villa, and even Fulham after that win. If they can get another win, they're sort of in the hunt as well. So it's interesting.
Yeah, like I say, this weekend's game between Fulham and Bournemouth is arguably one of the bigger ones. Whoever wins that might think, I know that takes Bournemouth onto the same points as Fulham, but of course the momentum. But Bournemouth haven't won in the last 2 points in the same period of time. So you'd have to say that they're on a downward curve. Whereas, as we said, if you remember last week, that Fulham are the ultimate win-lose. We just assumed that it was going to change, but actually it carried on. So on that logic, Bournemouth are winning this weekend, Fran. There you go.
I have thought the exact same thing. Just thinking, we said it, and it just seems to happen every single week. So at some point, you just got to go along with logic, haven't you?
It'll be, yeah. Let's wait until the season's over though, because obviously I've spent this whole season not doing the logical thing and finding different ways of throwing money up and down the tree, or down the drain would have been a better reference. But let's get cracking. Let's get into this week's fixtures. And we spoke about Crystal Palace's manager maybe being revered higher up the food chain, and they go to Manchester City in the early kickoff. And under any other time in the last, what feels like 100 years, and it obviously isn't 100 years, Man City at home would be all day long on the list. That would be an absolute home banker. But this doesn't feel like a home banker, does it? Actually, Crystal Palace could go in and give them a bloody nose, especially with it being the early kickoff.
Early kickoff. Wouldn't touch them with the barge pole with the way they're playing. If I was going to have a bet on it, I'd be backing Palace. I can't see how anyone can back Man City with the way that they're playing at the minute. I mean, as we've already alluded to, that Manchester derby was dreadful. It was so boring, so lacking in quality and passion. It was ridiculously poor. And obviously, I think that quite a large part of that wasn't to do with United. I thought, if anything, United tried and did try to attack. I thought Bruno Fernandes had a good game. Man City, on the other hand, I thought were really poor. And going into this Palace game, I can't see how anyone would be putting them in any bet, early kick-off especially. I just think it's a ridiculous thing to do.
Yeah, look, I'll be honest. I actually turned over from both the Manchester derby and Leicester Newcastle. I was sat down ready to go, all up for it, and I actually tapped out after 60 minutes, thinking this is not what I need to do with the rest of my life. Both of these games are not going to entertain me.
You got to 60 minutes.
Yeah, I liked it.
I think you've done well. I turned off the Leicester game after, 11 minutes, 2-0. I was like, that's done.
Yeah, well, it was, and it definitely was done. It was definitely, but I feel like this could be an interesting way to start your footballing week, because again, we talked about styles, and at least Palace do play a slightly different shape. They've got some informed players. I think I can see them giving Manchester City a bit of a bloody nose here, and I think this could be a really interesting way to go. Obviously, Mateta up against that back line. Obviously, Eze behind. I wish Malassar's doing some bits and pieces, but it'd be interesting to see defensively how Palace hold up, because they're starting to look like they're getting a grip of games and starting to be able to kind of control games. But this is going to be the true test, isn't it? But obviously, Man City missing Haaland is a big miss, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, just to go back to a Palace game, how well they played against Brighton, and then you look how did they lose to? Was it Southampton? I think they drew with.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how that has happened because of the form that Palace are in. They are a very, very good side. It doesn't surprise me other teams are after the manager. I agree with you. I think this is a dangerous game for Man City. I think Palace could beat them.
Yeah. Again, it's one of them games where any of the results wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, well, Palace as well have got generally have a fair bit of pace in their side, don't they? And Man City historically have always struggled with pace, especially down the wings. And Palace definitely have that in Ismail Assar. He's rapid. So I can see Palace causing them some problems here. I know historically, when I think of teams that have had a bit of success against Man City as well, I always think Everton have always done that, and Spurs. I think Palace have had a little bit of success against them because of the pace in the side. So, yeah, I'd be definitely looking at a different angle here. I don't think Man City will win the game.
I seem to remember the Andros Townsend goal was for Palace, wasn't it? That absolute screamer from like 100 yards. Yeah.
The volley, yeah.
I seem to remember that being for Palace. So, yeah, like I say, I think this could be a really interesting ebb and flow of the game, and it'd be interesting what Man City thinks. Of course, for them, Champions League football is essential. But if they lose that game, then they're going to put that under real pressure, aren't they? And potentially find themselves missing out on the top 5, which would have been unthinkable at the start of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I took that logic of it was a must-win game into the Manchester derby, and that's why I thought that they'd smash United. But it was played like they didn't care about qualification. Like there wasn't any urgency. So that's why when I look at this game, I think it's not like they're going to have that urgency against Palace, because it's not like the picture has changed for them. So yeah, I think Palace are a great bet for you, Sky Bet Freeze.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if they went ahead. No, yeah, good shout. I think we can we can catch up some time in terms of glossing over the next game. Brighton host Leicester at the American Express Stadium, 3:00 kickoff. It's just a case of 2-0 and by how many they win by, right?
I think the question is going to be, can Leicester score a goal this season? So let's not say against Brighton. Can they score another goal this season? Because surely they can't go, was it 7 games left? Another 7 games without scoring. I mean, the Mick McCarthy gif, they can. They absolutely can go another 7 games, but surely they have to score a singular goal. It's an absolute banker of 3 points. The price betting wise is how it should be. You should be touching Brighton at, I think, a 1 to 5. But yeah, I don't have any words to talk about Leicester anymore. I think it's better off just not talking about them, because it's that bad. I mean, the fans, none of them are going to the ground. They're walking out after 10 minutes being 2-0 down. The manager is still there, still picking the same unchanged team. Like I said, nothing more to say.
But Brighton needs to be looking, on the flip side of that coin, Brighton needs to be looking at this as a real opportunity to put the cat amongst the pigeons, because if we think that Crystal Palace could nick something from Manchester City, obviously Villa during a Champions League kind of double header against PSG, you could see, again, I'm a bit down, I've got Southampton, so you'd expect something, but you could see that being if Brighton was to win, this puts them on 50 points. You know, this is a bit of a free hit for them. They've got to go and, haven't they, get some goals, because their goal difference isn't looking great, because this could come down to goal difference, and actually try and get 3 or 4 past Leicester to really put that pressure on those teams slightly higher above them in the league.
Yeah, goal difference is massive, but like we said about the 5th place, that means all the other places shuffle down one, don't they? So the last thing you want to be doing is finishing 9th and ending up in the Conference League, when you can actually finish 6th, 7th and get into the Europa League. There's more money available. It's a better tournament. So obviously just finishing high up the league for the prize money, but also the better tournament for the European tournament to enter. That's exactly what they want to be doing. So it should be 3 points, but they've just got to go out there, be professional, and it should come pretty easily if they perform.
Absolutely right, yeah. We managed to talk longer about that than I thought we would do. City Ground, Nottingham Forest host Everton, 3 p.m. kickoff again. Forest need to bounce back from, rare defeat. Everton, in theory on the beach, but still sort of causing people troubles. Obviously got a point against Arsenal last time out. Forest starting to miss Chris Wood now, aren't they? You're starting to tell that actually that kind of, that when the first 11 together, they look real good, but they've missed him, haven't they? That's probably been the difference in the last few games.
It has. They've not scored as many goals. However, they are still scoring, though, aren't they? They're scoring 1. And you can absolutely tell they are missing, especially in form, Chris Wood. He before his injury had dropped off a bit as well, hadn't they? So you could tell they were missing that goal score, which is exactly what we said we thought they needed in January, just to bolster that attack. Again, on the league front, though, I just think they're going to be too far ahead of everyone else. but they've just got to keep chipping away. So even looking at games like Everton, just to not lose is a good result for them at this stage of the season, isn't it? So I can absolutely see this being very low scoring.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that with mostly not Nottingham Forest / Everton games. I think, Q are 3-3, just because that's the sort of law of it all. But yeah, I agree. I think that, if I'm thinking about if I was a Nottingham Forest manager, I would be thinking about, like you say, don't lose, pick up points. Top 5 would be. I know that there was talk, of course, at one point of them being higher than that, but 5th and Champions League football for that football club would still be a huge, massive success off the back of where they were. So I see Nottingham Forest setting up to not lose as much as to win.
Absolutely, and so they should do. When you look below them, the only team that are in form at the minute who look like they could put a serious run together is Newcastle. The other teams below them, Chelsea, Man City, Villa have picked up a bit, but they're a bit far behind, aren't they, to be honest? I just can't see anyone stringing 4 wins together. Like, that's just been the nature of the league, really. So, yeah, don't lose, and I think you're home and hosed.
Yeah, absolutely. And Everton, as we know, are on the beach, but still looking good. If I was an Everton supporter, I'd be thinking next season's looking positive. Again, albeit a somewhat fortuitous penalty against Arsenal, but a good point nonetheless. And again, it feels like an absolute lifetime ago was the last time that we had 7 games left and we weren't worried about Everton going down. And actually, Everton should be looking up, and you could even see them finishing as high as 12th if they carry on the way they're going. I know that they've drawn 4 of their last 5, but actually, if they can turn some of those 1s into 3s, they could quite quickly shoot up the league.
And like we said before, the higher up you finish, the more prize money you get, and it goes towards PSR, which Everton have struggled for years and years now. So to add a couple of wins to that and shoot them up from 15th just to 13th, it's not a big jump, but it's about 5-6 million quid. Like, it's a fair chunk. So it's 100% they should be aiming to pick up more points and not just be on the beach. And we know that phrase is sometimes a bit tongue in cheek, isn't it? But there is more to play for. I know you're guaranteed survival, but PSR points deductions for next season, like, it's not where they need to be. So the higher up you finish, the easier it is.
Yeah, 4 of the last 5 fixtures have finished 1-1. So that might be a clue as to what you need to predict. And obviously the other one was the 1-0 defeat to Liverpool. So under 2.5 goals looks like a shout. Like we said, Nottingham Forest also have started to dry up with the goals. So actually, obviously, barring obviously the Ipswich game, they've gone 0, 1, 1, 1. So you could very comfortably see this being a 1-1 or maybe a push 2-0. But yeah, I think this is going to be a very old school type of game. Actually, we spoke earlier about systems and football being boring. I don't see this being your stereotypical 4-3-3 pattern pass. I think it's going to be a little bit more blood and thunder.
100%, and it won't be. I don't think it'll be pretty from a Forest perspective of passing the ball, getting it down. But they are very structured defensively, which I personally like to see. That sort of thing. It's very different to being defensively solid because you retain the ball. Actually, having 5, 6, 7 men low block and then breaking at pace. I like to see that sort of thing. So yeah, I think this has got the potential to be a very good game on the eye.
Yeah, and Milenkovic has to be in with us when we talk about team of the season, player of the season. I know it generally goes to a Mo Salah who scored 177 goals, but Milenkovic has been absolutely top draw back there. And I think he's definitely someone worthy of a mention in all of those kind of, as we come to the end of the season, those award ceremonies pieces.
Signing of the season or in team of the year, definitely. Just said he's not going to win player of the season, is he? But getting into a team of the year or a signing of the season definitely is in the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. 5:30 now. Arsenal host Brentford at the Emirates. The risk for me here is that emotional journey that they went on Tuesday night. Do you pick yourself up? And it was referenced on Monday Night Football before kick-off when they were talking about Liverpool and the drop-off against Fulham. Don't forget they played the Merseyside derby last week, and that emotional rollercoaster, and it takes a lot out of players. Arsenal were on a huge high, obviously, on Tuesday night. Can they pick themselves up? And again, we said this about Newcastle last week. The team that you don't really want to play when you've just had an emotional high is probably Brentford, because they're annoying, aren't they? They're just really good at what they do, and they make it bloody tough for you.
It is, and my question would be, we're speaking saying Forest are probably secure. Arsenal are most definitely secure of that Champions League place. They're too far behind catching Liverpool. Will they rest players? Will they look at that and just go, do you know what, let's rest a couple of players like Saka? I can't see Saka starting. I don't know if you can. It seems pointless to me to start him, especially if he has picked up a little bit of a knock. You may as well rest him and wrap him in cotton wool for the next Real Madrid game. So I, again, would be hesitant to pick Arsenal just because, even though, like you said, they're on a high, coming down to a game against Brentford, possibly resting players, I think it'd be hard-pressed to pick Arsenal.
Yeah, you
I think they'll win. I think they'll win, but I wouldn't be backing it.
You certainly wouldn't be backing with confidence, would you? And it definitely wouldn't surprise for Brian and Bremo to pop up with a toe poke from some, like I say, but Brentford are just like I say, they're just that annoying team that you just don't want to play when you need a win. Like they are, very, very good at what they do. I do think that they're in for an interesting period of time in terms of do they keep their players, do they keep the manager, etc. Or what's the knock-on effect of, Palace potentially losing their manager. Where do people go off the back of that? Is it time for a change? But Arsenal really now have got to put all of their eggs in the Champions League basket. Done in this season, Champions League, not qualifying for next season. That's done. Like you say, maybe internally they still feel they've got a chance of catching Liverpool, but you just can't see. Because I see Arsenal dropping points. I don't see Arsenal going to the end of the season without dropping any points either, to be honest with you.
And that's the point around the Champions League places is there's not really been, with the exception of Liverpool, anyone who's put together strings of results where it's seen them shoot up the league. I know like Bournemouth have had patches of 4 or 5 wins here and there, but from a title and European perspective, there hasn't been a very consistent team that's challenged Liverpool. And like you said, I look at this game week and I think Liverpool are probably nailed on to beat West Ham because I think they're really poor at the minute. Whereas Arsenal, I'd say, are more likely to drop points against Brentford than Liverpool. So, yeah, I think it's done. So they might be talking about internally saying, another win here and there, and they drop some points. The title challenge is back on. Too far gone for me.
Yeah, and Arsenal still have Anfield to travel to and Newcastle to come to the Emirates. So again, they've got a couple of tricky fixtures in there. Having said that, of course, if Liverpool did drop some points, having to go there, and if Arsenal could do something magical up there, taking you back to the late 80s, obviously, when there was a magical night up there if you're an Arsenal fan. But yeah, I think we're clutching at straws, and maybe Arsenal still are, maybe they think they are. But if I was them, I know where I'd be putting all my energy, and that would be on trying to win that Champions League. I know you said that PSG might be a kind of road too far, but nonetheless, I'd be giving that a go because you
give it a go. They've just gone and battered Real Madrid, haven't they? So yeah, focus on that. I'd agree. You've missed a fixture, by the way, Villa Southampton.
Oh yeah. Oh, well done. Yeah, good point. Oh, wow.
I didn't know if you'd just come to the end now. I just thought I'd let you know.
Thank you. I don't know what happened now. Obviously, half asleep still. So, yes, that's the 5:30 kickoff. There is another, thank you very much, 3 p.m. kickoff. Southampton, who are relegated and managerless, host Aston Villa. We touched on it earlier. This could be the perfect fixture for Villa, couldn't it? Obviously, they've got a tough evening ahead of them to claw back the 2-goal deficit, and to play an already relegated Southampton might just be the rotational kind of opportunity they need to give themselves the best chance on next week's second leg.
Yeah, and when I look at their bench, rotational-wise, they've still got some quality, so I can see this being quite a comfortable Villa win. I said Southampton relegated. Might take the pressure off them a little bit. I mean, the pressure's been off for ages, realistically, but actually being relegated, they might start to feel that they can just attack teams, and if they lose, they lose. They might even play some youngsters. I'm a bit baffled by Southampton. I understand why the manager's gone, but why now? I'd have let him just carry on until the end of the season whilst doing this process, unless they're going to bring somebody in this instance, which I don't think is going to happen. I'd have let him carry on and just let him keep taking all the flack. I'd have used him as a bit of a shield rather than try and look to get a manager. So what's going to happen now is pressure's going to be on the board to appoint somebody, which if they'd have just let him carry on, they could have used him as a bit of a shield whilst doing this planning exercise.
Do you think that this could be the season that changes the perception of that manager bounce? Because if you talk about two of the teams that are going to go down, Southampton and Leicester, both changed managers and arguably, definitely didn't see any improvement, but arguably got worse. Do you think that might change people's mentality? Now, I'm not suggesting for a second that Ipswich are going to stay up, but and we spoke about this kind of via WhatsApp the other night, like Ipswich are in a better position to come straight back up again than the other two teams, we think. But do you think keeping the manager is actually part of that as well, and actually keeping one style of football? I just I just think that both other teams have actually not got any better off the back of a managerial change.
I don't think it will change that perception of the manager bounce because, I mean, when I look at Van Nistelrooy, there was a bounce. He came in and he took 4 points from the first couple of games. Obviously, going forward, there hasn't been. But I think that's got more to do with how poor the two teams are, as opposed to, like, you could have put Guardiola in there, you could have put anyone in there, and I'd still think the same things would be happening. Obviously, there's probably performing a bit better, but just the quality isn't there. So I can't see those two changing that sort of. I was going to call it a myth. I don't think it is a myth. I do genuinely think that when you change the manager, you do get a bounce.
Yeah, but do you not think that you have to kind of look at what you've got in terms of, so again, the Leicester squad looked thin. January missed. Would they be better off actually going? Do you know what? Keep the manager, have a better January transfer window. Same with Southampton. Like ultimately, like coaches and managers only can take a player or a team so far beyond what they're actually capable of doing.
Yeah, no, so I think that's got more to do with. I think it highlights how poorly both of the clubs are being run. Is that they have added new managers, but they're not supplied them with the players they need to be able to influence the squad. So in Van Nistelrooy's case, he got signed a right back who hasn't played, so therefore he's had the same squad that Steve Cooper had, different styles. So he hasn't really stood any chance. Which is why I think, on this front of keeping the manager, I think what Leicester are doing is they're keeping Van Nistelrooy, letting him take all the flack, and then they'll go fresh start to the new season, which is what I imagine Southampton to do, but the manager's not there. Like, I think they should just kept him in charge. Off you go, you keep going, and then go again.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about, and again, by the way, I wonder whether this has just hit me right in the goodies, whether they change the manager now because it counts for a different financial year and therefore FFP is done differently. So that's obviously every time you release a manager and his backroom staff, it generally costs between 10 and 20 million quid. So actually to take the hit in this financial year when you're in the Premier League might be a more sensible way of doing it than next year when you're in the Championship.
Definitely. I also think in Southampton's case, there was a relegation release clause to Zurich. So literally, as soon as it was confirmed they were down, it was probably, I don't know what it was, I'm making this up, but 50% reduction in fee. So they've obviously done that there and then, which I can imagine is going to be the same thing for Leicester. It would be nonsensical to sack him now when quite clearly they're going down. And if they get relegated, the fee's going to be halved or whatever it is. So that's exactly why I think it's being held off for Leicester's point of view. They're going to do the same as Southampton and sack him when relegation's confirmed.
Yeah, like I say, it's going to be really fascinating. And of course, you talk about the Championship. We spoke about Birmingham now up into the Championship. Listening to a few people in the game talking about how they feel that even if they don't spend a penny, they're a top half Championship team already. We actually spoke on Monday night that Birmingham gave Newcastle a better game than Leicester. I appreciate different competition, and there was obviously more emotion to it, etc. But nonetheless, Wrexham looked like they could come up as well. So actually, all of a sudden, that Championship, which is a great league anyway, is getting a couple of historical big clubs with some big finances coming in there as well. It's going to be a really tough challenge for anyone in there next season.
Yeah, and when I look at the teams that could potentially go down, there's some bigger clubs. So it's not really, probably with the exception of Plymouth, I mean that with the greatest respect. You could get a Hull that goes down. Some of the teams that have been Championship strongholds. So yeah, they could go down. The thing for me is when I look at the three teams that go down, and let's take Leicester, who I think are poorer than Southampton. I think it's just fortunate that they've got a couple more points on the board, and that's not because they're better. There's a bit of context to those games. Let's say Leicester are the worst team in the league. I don't think it's possible to say that they're not going to be anywhere near the top six, because even with some of the players which will be sold, you look at some of the players that they've got, they're still going to be strong enough to compete in the league. So, and I think that just highlights the gap between the two divisions, is that Leicester being so poor, Sheffield last season being so poor, Sheffield were third, second, like going to be coming back up. Burnley were dreadful last season. Yes, they've had a bit of a revamp, but they're still top of the league. Like, I can't. Luton are probably the outlier of this, aren't they? They're all the way down there. I can't see any of the three teams coming down that are going to be miles off it next season, even with having to shell out, loads of the players and trying to get back on an even keel financially.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, is so many twists and turns, right? And like I say, I think what I'm thinking, being honest with you, next season I'm going to spend more time just watching the Championship. I know there was a a dodgy decision in the Middlesbrough Leeds game where the VAR would have given the goal to Daka. But much more sort of honest and thorough football with a little bit more style. And again, so many big teams and big clubs. It's actually a joy to watch, sort of from refreshing football, isn't it?
I've watched a fair bit of it, and I really enjoy watching the Football League. I think it's got a lot more about it than the Premier League at the minute. It's far more enjoyable to watch.
Yeah, well, I suppose that's one consolation for Southampton, Leicester, and Ipswich fans. Sorry, my brain's all over the place today. Sorry, Ipswich fans. Okay, Sunday. I'm just checking. We've got 4 games Sunday. Don't forget any of them. We start at Stamford Bridge, where Chelsea host Ipswich. This kind of feels like the perfect fixture for Chelsea. If I'm honest with you, Ipswich do play football, but you just feel that Chelsea's squad should have enough. Having said that, they are in the middle of a back-to-back European League. They did rest players last week for this, which feels a bit weird. Without due respect to the Conference League, it's not exactly the toughest competition out there. Chelsea are strong favourites. So, if Chelsea don't rotate, this should be just a straightforward home victory, shouldn't it?
I think so. The only thing I can see causing Chelsea problems is, it's not an out there shout. Is obviously Liam Delap. Will he be playing for pretty much a place at Chelsea? He's going to be trying to impress. I can see him giving the defenders a run around because he's a very, very good player. And now I've heard that the relegation relief costs you 30 million, not 40. He's going to be even more attractive to some of the top teams than what he previously. I know 10 million is nothing, but 30 million. I mean, he'll have the middle of the table teams after him as well. So that's the only thing I can see. I mean, with relegation pretty much confirmed, you'd imagine it's going to knock the stuffing out of Ipswich a lot, that previous result. So I think Chelsea are a good bet. I don't think they're too bad a price either. I think they're 1-3, which I know it's not something you'd sling hundreds of pounds on, but 1-3 in a bet builder, in an ACCA isn't a bad price, especially at home against a relegated team.
No, and obviously Liam Delap, sorry, still have to force that one out. He's not going to go for 30 million. That would be the starting point that he could go for, but there'll be a bidding war and someone's going to have to pay way more than that to get him. Like it's, everybody can get around the table, but in reality, I just think that that's going to be a much, much higher number than that because he has looked like a breath of fresh air in terms of when you look around the league. This should be a reference point, by the way, but I was just, looking to change my fantasy team a little bit, and I kind of did it by a form. And you look down the list of centre forwards, and it is absolutely dire, absolutely woeful.
Well, that's why when I look at this and go 30 million quid, I know, like you said, there's going to be a bidding war, and some of the teams that will bid 30 million, as an example, of Fulham, he's going to be attracted to Fulham because they're a better club, but there's going to be far better options out there for him to go to, so he's just not going to go there. But when you look at some of the strikers in the Premier League, you think, with the exception of Haaland and even like Watkins, Isak, Watkins to an extent has been in and out this season. He's not looked the player he has. Like, it is 2 strikers, really, from a fantasy perspective that you're looking at, really. Chris Wood was an outlier with his form. He's not naturally that good, is he? So it is a very, very poor league with strikers at the minute, and that's why I think he'll be very attractive. It'll be interesting where he goes. Based on he's obviously gone to Ipswich from Man City for game time, will he go down that route again? Because the natural sort of thing would be to go to somewhere like a Chelsea or something, but is he going to get that game time that he needs? So will he actually maybe go like a rung down and try and go somewhere else where he's going to play every week?
I think he'll be in demand enough to not have a clause, but have a I need to be in the squad, I need to be in the team sort of a clause. Like he's not going to go somewhere where he's not guaranteed. And I use the word loosely guaranteed, but you know what I'm saying? Like he's definitely going to have some assurances that he's going to be starting.
Yeah. Well, do you know, we've been saying we haven't really got a successor to Harry Kane in the England team. Well, he is, isn't he? He is a successor. And actually, I'd be playing him a fair bit to get him some experience for the national team because he seems to be the natural successor. He's young as well. So when we are playing teams where we need to press more, I'd be playing him instead of Kane. I think you've got to use Kane wisely these days.
Yeah, I agree. And again, going back a couple of weeks, that was my issue, if I'm being honest with you, with what Tuchel did with the squad then. I feel like he missed an opportunity to throw some people at it. 2 relatively comfortable, relatively easy games. Do we really need to see any more of Harry Kane? He's playing really well, by the way, and I can't believe more people aren't talking about him in the sort of Ballon d'Or mix. But do we need to rely on him for 80 minutes at home against the third tier nation? If we're being honest, surely we should be able to throw some people at this to see what's there, because Harry Kane does have some ankle issues over the years. He is susceptible to a sprained ankle. We need to make sure we've got a plan B and a C. And like you say, at the moment, the plan B of Solanke and the plan C of Watkins doesn't really excite me.
No, and when you've got somebody like Delap, who is, let's be honest, the phrase tearing it up is normally reserved for somebody like an Isak, who is, scoring goals for fun. But he scored a lot of goals for a team which could be classed as one of the worst to be promoted. So, he's done phenomenally well. So, 100% he should be getting a chance at national level. And he should have his pick of the teams in the Premier League as well.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's worth checking whether Man City put a buyback in the contract. That would have been the first refusal.
I wouldn't be going there if I was him, though, because they've got Haaland and Marmoush, haven't they, who has been backing up to Haaland. I know he's been playing wide as well, but that's one place I wouldn't be going, because that doesn't guarantee you the game time.
Yeah, again, as you know, footballers and football managers are arrogant in the fact that they feel they can make a player that's out of form back into form, and vice versa. Players think that they're good enough to get into the squad, but also if someone offers you $300,000 a week, that does there come a comfort point where you go, do you know what? If I'm not playing, it's $300,000 a week. I'm set for life. I don't know. Maybe that's for them to answer, not me. But yeah, like you say, Liam Delap will definitely have his choice of clubs, and I think if I was him, if I'm being honest, I'd be looking at Arsenal. That's where I think I'd be going. I'd be going, do you know what? That's where I want to be. That's a club that's big enough to fit me. I could be the number 9 there for 10 years. I could be, I'm thinking about sort of the way they revere Henry and Ian Wright. You could put his name amongst them, I think, if he obviously stays injury free, etc., and reaches potential. But that's where I'd be thinking of going if I was him.
Yeah, I think the other one for me that stands out is probably Liverpool. Liverpool will be weaker next season, but they do have a vacancy at 9, really, don't they? They haven't really got that out-and-out goal scorer, and I think he'd suit their style pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, talking of Liverpool, they host West Ham at Anfield at 2:00 live on Sky. And this is just really for me about Liverpool getting back on the horse, getting back to business, just almost a meat and veg kind of a performance. Don't need anything more than a win. Just get the win, calm the nerves, shut the noise down, and just get back to winning games of football.
I think so, and it doesn't surprise me that their form's dropped off, because Salah's form has dropped off a cliff as well. So what they need to do is try and get Salah back into some form, hopefully get him scoring some goals again. And I would imagine that Liverpool's form will come back with it. But, they do look wobbly at the minute. I think this is a perfect fixture for them. I don't like the way West Ham are playing at the minute. They don't seem to have any attacking intent. They're keeping the ball for the sake of it. Very Potter-esque. I think it's a perfect fixture for Liverpool, and I can see it's been very comfortable. I think it's ideal for them.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't see West Ham having enough blood and guts and thunder to worry them. I think, like you say, there's no mileage now. It's a free hit for West Ham. They're not expected to beat Liverpool. It's not like they're playing... Like, if West Ham were playing Ipswich at home, you might expect a higher tempo because the fans are on their back. But, it's a bit of an away day, isn't it? Like I say, West Ham have got nothing to play for. I must admit, West Ham's league position, do they care? Does it matter if you finish 16th, if we're being honest? Do they really care? Probably not. I don't know. Maybe you can tell me otherwise.
No, I agree. I don't think they do care. I think obviously they're not going down, and they are literally looking to next season to go, we know we're in transition. We know we're having a rebuild. There's going to be a big turnover of players, I'd imagine. Quite a few out, quite a few players in with very differences of style. I think you'll see a lot of the cloggers going out and a lot more technical players coming in. I don't think they genuinely care. Obviously, they want to win the games, but I don't think they care, to be honest. I think that everything is on next season for West Ham. Yeah,
the only, I guess, slight challenge I can give them is that if they could finish above Spurs, a bit of bragging rights locally, but, does anybody really care about that? I don't know. Finishing 14th or 15th or 17th, can you really brag about that? I guess, I don't know.
No, like, before it is all prize money is what they're playing for, but
the players don't care about that.
From a fan's perspective, they don't care about that. They are literally looking to next season, because from what they're seeing and what I've seen, if that's on the telly, I don't know if it is. I won't be watching that. I think that's got Ballfest written all over it.
It's on the telly, yeah. He's there on Sky Sports.
I won't be watching that then.
No, but the 4:30 might interest you. But yeah, so Liverpool, West Ham, And I think I've said this about a few clubs. I think West Ham are a bit of a crossroads here in the sense that if they don't get this next kind of 6, 7, 8 weeks right in terms of setting up the end of the season transfer window, they could fall into the abyss if they're not careful. They could become very irrelevant very quickly because I'm not sure who goes there in the summer. Like if you're a top player, are you going to go to West Ham based on all of the history and all of the evidence you've got? Probably not.
Yeah, I think the only thing they've got is the London factor, and I think they do pay relatively big wages, haven't they? But the pull at the minute doesn't really. I can't really see like you said, why you'd go there.
No, I can't
The
think of.
shine of they've almost wasted the opportunity of winning that European trophy, haven't they? To kick on, like from what you remember recently, is it's been horrendous from a footballing perspective. They've got on the back of managers, so it does seem a bit of a graveyard for players of late.
Yeah, completely agree. Talking of teams in flux and in danger of becoming irrelevant if they haven't already, at Molineux, 2:00 Sunday, Wolves host Spurs. And of course, I'm talking about Spurs, not Wolves. In the middle of a kind of double-header with Eintracht Frankfurt, for me, just to be clear, this is a home victory all day long.
So I haven't got it as a home victory. I think it'll be an interesting game. I think there'll be goals in it. Absolutely.
There'll definitely be goals in it.
Both ends of the pitch. I don't know if Wolves will have the firepower to win the game. But I mean, Spurs are in a terrible moment, aren't they? Absolutely dreadful. Everything's all in on the Europa League. So I can see why that logic is there. I just don't know if Wolves are good enough.
I think they've got a player in Strand Larson we spoke about last week that obviously went on to score again at the weekend. I think that they've got a player and a system. And again, I've got to be honest with you, Spurs just keep finding ways to, even Southampton got a goal, somehow managed to make a game that was relatively comfortable, a little bit nervy at the end. So, for me, at home, Wolves have a good record against Spurs recently. If you go back and track it, the Wolves have beaten Spurs far more than Spurs have beaten Wolves. I think that Wolves will want this a little bit more. Like I say, Spurs are going to probably need to nurse some players because, again, probably petrified of injury. Mickey van der Ven didn't play at the weekend because they're trying to get him ready for tonight's Eintracht Frankfurt fixture. I think Spurs could go with a little bit of a left field selection there, depending on how the Europa League game goes. But for me, like I say, Wolves are heavy favourites.
Yeah, and Cunha's back as well.
Yep. And by the way, Wolves are actually quite heavy favourites at the bookies as well. So, I'm not just saying, they're 6-5, Spurs are 2-1. So, genuinely, for me, that's one of those ways that I'm going to be looking to add a little bit of income off the back of my £5, challenge this week because I just can't see Spurs having any inkling or care about winning that game. And I just feel the Wolves will want it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Of course, Q Spurs going to win 5-0, just because that's kind of how my luck's going this season at the moment with my predictions. Newcastle host Manchester United, which is actually the interesting game of Sunday, 4:30 St James's Park. Manchester United have shown some shoots of recovery. They are starting to look a little bit like they're understanding the system better, but they are toothless. They don't look like scoring at any point in the future. They're almost sort of second to Leicester for me in terms of go under 1.5 Man United goals or something like that. When Newcastle do look like they still have that fire in their belly, they look lively, don't they, going forward, even with a couple of players missing, Anthony Gordon out. Jacob Murphy's come in. I can't believe you got him in your fantasy team, by the way. That's a rascal decision. I mean, it obviously paid off for you, but that's proper rascal. That could be the difference between you winning and me winning this season as well. And Jacob Murphy's not a player you should ever have in your fantasy team. I'll let it slide.
Well, to be honest, all I do was there was a bit of logic behind it as they're playing Leicester, and in the next game week they've got a double game week. So I was like, get him in. I actually took a 4-point hit on that to get him in.
Did you really? Oh wow!
I did.
Good God! Imagine taking a 4-point hit to get Jacob Murphy into your team. Anyway, you are top. I'm second.
11 minutes as well.
Yeah. You are top. I am second. So maybe I should bow down to your greater knowledge. Can you put any case up for Manchester United win this game, or is this another one of those sort of home bankers that we've talked about?
I think they're a good price, to be honest. Man U, again, are in transition. There's no real motivation there, is there really? I think it's a home banker, if I'm being honest. Newcastle, like you said, Champions League means the world to them and the fans, and the way that they played against Leicester, they could have turned up at 20% and still won the game, but they didn't. Like, they were absolutely on it, weren't they? Defending, the little defending they had to do, they did it really well. So I can't see them taking the foot off the gas for this. Like, it's going to be a full-blooded Newcastle performance, so I can see them winning this quite comfortably.
Yeah, I think again we've got to look at teams' journeys and where they're at and what they were playing towards. And Manchester United are playing for next season. If we're being honest, Newcastle are playing for this season, and I think that will be enough. The home supporters will be bang up for it. It's going to be to use the cliche, cauldron of atmosphere. And like you say, I just think that Newcastle are in a really, really good spot right now. Everybody seems to be fully back on board, all pulling together. They celebrated the Leicester victory like it was a really important game. They've won 4 of their last 5, only losing to Liverpool away. And so I think this is pretty much a guaranteed home victory.
Yep, agreed.
Monday night football now. Do you want to take a moment to apologise to the Bournemouth fans, or are you going to give them another kicking because you got a little bit of grief from during the week, didn't you?
Apparently, I was making shit up was the phrase that was thrown at me. Why I would do that to, obviously, we've got millions and millions of listeners, so clearly you know nothing. I saw in the comments, when the live feed was going out from Twitter, there was comments about him being sacked and about them changing the manager, which then we just had a conversation with and they threw their toys out the pram. So, balls to you, Bournemouth fans. Hope you get beat by Fulham.
Well, hold on, because let's not forget, at the start of the season, we upset the Fulham fans. So this is the battle of the people that hate us the most.
Well, there was a couple of ones who I had interaction with, and they, there was a few back and forth, and they were absolutely sound. So fair play to you. But some of them just came. One of them called me a wanker. I thought, cheers. That was literally it. I thought, sound. Thanks for that.
Yeah, good.
But I mean,
good football debate.
There was just no context to it as well, wasn't there? So obviously we put it out there to say, is he due to be sacked? With a question mark, and people were taking it as a statement that we thought that. That wasn't the case. We were just debating it, weren't we? And he's done a fantastic job there. They're Bournemouth. They've done a fantastic job. They're still in the hunt for European football. Like, what more do they want? And that was the point we were making, to say we were surprised to see some comments.
Well, yeah, but they have had a fall from grace. They are 5 games without a win, 2 points in the last 15. And actually, as much as we've just talked about the Fulham up, down, win, loss, you'd have to say at the moment, Fulham go into this as favourites based on form and based on where they're at in their trajectory. And Fulham will be looking up, not down, whereas Bournemouth will be looking down, not up.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think when I look at this game, I think Fulham are a decent price. I know win one, lose one, win one, lose one. But I think Fulham are a decent price in this because, like you said, it probably means a little bit more to them table-wise. Bournemouth aren't at full tilt. Their squad is very stretched. So I do like the price on Fulham, I must admit.
Yeah, I haven't seen the price, to be fair, but I think
the 9-4, so they're just over 2-1, which I think is a decent price when you see logically you think about it. Bournemouth aren't playing very well. Their squad is very thin. You can't make any subs to change the game. And Fulham have just come off the back of beating Liverpool, which screams that they're going to get beat. But I think 9-4 is a decent price for a team which have been performing well of late.
It definitely is a decent price, and obviously Bournemouth's home record was very good up until recently. So I think this could be. I see this one having goals. Actually, I see this one being entertaining. I see this one being over 2.5 goals, and it wouldn't surprise me if it was either way. I can see all 3 results happening here, and like you say, for me, that logic of Fulham of you go and beat Liverpool, and then you go and lose to Bournemouth. That does kind of feel like that's kind of how a lot of team seasons going.
Yeah, definitely.
But looking forward to that one. Now let's get back to the top and let's do our predictions for this week, which of course starts back at the Etihad, 12:30 kickoff. TNT Sports Live, Manchester City host Crystal Palace. You think the score will be
1-1?
I think the score will be 2-2. So a draw either way. Brighton host Leicester at the American Express Stadium at 3:00 kickoff. You think the score will be
3-0?
Bingo bango. I've gone exactly the same. Kept it the same as the Leicester Newcastle score. That feels like a pretty consistent number. Although this is one of those games, ironically, that wouldn't surprise me if it was more than 3. We tend to become a little bit more conservative as the season's gone on. But I can see Brighton, if they get at it, opening Leicester up more than 3. Nottingham Forest host Everton at the City Ground, 3:00 kickoff. The score will be
1-0 Forest.
Yeah, I've gone ambitious. I've gone 2-1 Forest, but you're probably more right than me. I think 3 goals in that game is maybe, yeah, I'm going to stick with it, but I do see what you're saying. The game that I forgot earlier, apologies everybody, Southampton host Aston Villa at St Mary's, 3 p.m. also on Saturday. You think the score will be?
I've gone for Southampton 0, Villa 3. I was going to say 1 then, 3.
I've gone 1-3. Southampton 1, Villa 3. Southampton do seem to nick a goal as and when. 5:30 kick-off, Emirates Stadium. Arsenal, fresh off that victory against Real Madrid, host Brentford. You think the score will be?
I've gone for 3-1.
I've gone for 2-1 Arsenal. I think it's going to be difficult for everybody to get back up again after that game. But yeah, interesting watching. Like I said, I think Brentford could give them a little bit of a tougher fixture than Real Madrid. Who thought you'd ever say that, right? We move to Sunday, 2 o'clock at Stamford Bridge. Chelsea host Ipswich. This one is not on the telly. You think the score will be?
I've gone for Chelsea 2, Ipswich 1.
So have I. Spot on. I completely agree. That's exactly what I've got. On Sky Sports at 2 o'clock at Anfield, Liverpool host West Ham. You think the score will be?
2-0 Liverpool.
That's exactly what I got. This is where we're going to differ. 2 o'clock on Sunday at Molineux, Wolves host Spurs. You think the score will be?
I've gone for 2-2.
I've gone for 2-1 Wolves. I don't see how Spurs have it in them to get themselves up and down, and I just think that'd be too much for them. And then we go to St James's Park, 4:30 kick-off. This is a throwback of the ages. I remember that, what was his name? Philip Albert chip over Schmeichel back in the day. Some real classics. Newcastle host Manchester United. You think the score will be?
Newcastle 2, Man U 0.
I've gone 3-1. I've gone 3-1 Newcastle. By the way, I can't believe I pulled Philip Albert out of my backside and I can't get Liam Delap's name right. Still in my head, it's still right. Anyway, moving on. Bournemouth, the battle of the people that hate us the most. Bournemouth versus Fulham on Monday night. You've gone for?
I've gone for Fulham 2-1 win, so have that, Bournemouth fans.
Well, okay. So then, because you upset the Bournemouth fans, I upset the Fulham fans, so I've gone 2-1 Bournemouth. I haven't actually done it for any other reason, but I think that is a score. I have no ill feeling towards any of these teams. That would be pathetic and childish. Okay. We always throw £5 up against the wall. You've gone for what this week?
I've gone for 5 teams, which pays £76, and that is Brighton, Villa, Chelsea, Newcastle, and Fulham.
Okay. Yeah, very nice. Mine's a little bit softer this week. I've only got essentially £25 return on my fourfold, which is Brighton, Liverpool, Wolves, and Newcastle. That only returns £25. But remember, guys and gals, winning bet is a good bet. Don't go chasing the big numbers. Don't go chasing any numbers. Fran, as always, my favourite hour of the week. We are on a deadline today, so it's a tight finish, so hopefully we'll run through it on time. Where can people find us and reach out to us if they want to abuse us or say anything nice to us as well, either?
Nice, would be quite nice. We're on X, well. We're on Facebook, and we are on TikTok. So you'll find us on social media there. If you want to listen to the episodes, we are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Just search for The Atmosphere is Electric or TAIE Podcast.
Buddy, as always, love that. Thank you very much. I look forward to speaking to you next week. Have a great week, bud.